Janine, Are we ready?
Yes, Albert's here.
Albert, you ready to go? Commissioner Underwood, are you online?
I am here, yes.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Couple things real quick. If you have a cell phone, we'd appreciate it if you would put it on silent mode or turn it off. And if you think you would like to speak in favor or against any of the cases this morning, if you would go over and sign in with Eileen, we would appreciate that. I think, and although you only see 4 people, we have 1 commissioner online, so there's 5 of us present. Eileen, you want to call the roll, please?
Commissioner Underwood,
Present.
Commissioner Montañez,
Here, present.
Commissioner Lear,
Here.
Commissioner Jimenez, Commissioner Castañeda,
Here.
Commissioner Acosta, Vice Chair Zerniak.
Present. Okay, we need approval or approval of the agenda. Can I get a motion, please?
I move to approve the agenda as written.
I'll second that.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Approval of the minutes for the regular meeting of June 8th, 2023. I need a motion, please. Commissioners, I need a motion so we can move forward.
I'll move that we approve the minutes from the regular meeting of June 8th, 2023.
I'll second that. Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, we have no old business, so we move to case number SU 23-012.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Please raise your right hand and state your name and address for the record.
Albert Casillas, 845 North Motel Boulevard.
Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth under penalty of law?
I do.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. For our first case today, we have a special use permit for a micro-business establishment for the cultivation of cannabis. The property owner is Mr. Felipe Contreras, and the applicant is going to be Mr. Noe Page. This property is located on 5750 North Star Court, which is north of Las Cruces. Zoning is D1, and it's for a total of 200 mature cannabis plants. So the applicant originally submitted the SUP on April 14th, 2023. Letters were sent out for public notification for administrative approval, and then we ended up getting emails and letters against the request, which is what triggered the public hearing. This is just a location map of where the property is located. This is North Star Court right here. That's the subject parcel. This is Desert Wind Way, and then this is going to be La Reina. So it's north of the city limits. So we have La Reina, Desert Wind, and North Star Court. So it's that corner property right there. When we look at the aerial, that is the subject parcel. This is a North Star Court right here. We have La Reina. La Reina and Desert Wind, they're both paved, county maintained right-of-ways. The property itself, it's about 0.63 acres. It's located within that D1 zone. It currently has a single-family residence on the property. Surrounding neighborhood, it's single-family residential, and it is within the Desert Vista Replat number 1 subdivision that was recorded back in 1986, and that replat's just basically for the residential lots that are right there on North Star Court, and that was recorded in 1986. Water provided by Moongate, and a septic tank is installed on the property. The property was acquired by the current owner on 2012, Access will be off of North Star Court, which is a private unimproved road not maintained by the county. And this is a aerial from 2018. Of course, we see Desert Wind Way right here, which is paved, and this is North Star Court, and that's the entrance to the property right here. They basically have two entrances off of North Star. When we look at the zoning map, it's basically all D1 and D1L. That orange right there, it's zoning, that has been on the property since the ETZ was there. But it's basically for a mobile home park. So, everything behind that subdivision has that mobile home park designation. So on April 14th, like I said before, it was Mr. Page who submitted the SUP application for a maximum of 200 plants to cultivate cannabis. Letters in opposition to the request were received, and so that triggered the hearing today. The applicant is proposing 2 greenhouses, a 20 by 70 and a 30 by 35 greenhouse, and the applicant states the following for his establishment, that the goal of the business is to cultivate cannabis primarily for medical use, following all, New Mexico Cannabis Control Division rules and regs. The cannabis will be grown in outdoor greenhouses, an appealing durable fence obscuring view of any of the business area, business activities, or cannabis plants will be erected. A monitored security system will be in place, and the business area will be far back on the property, and it will have no signage or markings identifying it as any sort of business. That's the statement from the applicant. Water will be supplied by Moongate Water. Organic waste will be managed by composting as outlined by the New Mexico Cannabis Control Division. Hours of operation are to be determined, but customers are not expected to be on site. This is purely a production business with delivery of the wholesale product to the retail businesses. On your packet, you're going to have their overall site plan. When we look at this survey of the property, of course, we're seeing the easement or the access to the property, which is off of North Star Court. They basically have a 25-foot road and utility easement on their side, and there's another 25-foot easement on the other side for the property for a total of 50 feet. It's depicting the existing dwelling, and it's showing the areas of the proposed grow areas. We have grow area number 1 to the north, on the north side of the property, and we have grow area number 2 on the southeastern corner of the property. This is Desert Wind Way. So the site plan is just basically just showing their proposed outdoor greenhouses. Notifications, 13 letters were sent out for the public hearing. Notice was posted on the Sun News, and there were signs posted on the property as well. Out of the letters and emails that were submitted from concerned neighbors, the following were some of the issues that were brought up, which is additional vehicular traffic, higher crime rate. The neighborhood is currently quiet and peaceful. They had concerns with pesticides, the area being a residential area, not commercial, odors and smells, and of course, offensive odors and smells. I'm going to read a letter that I just got this week, just for the record, real quick. This is going to be from Ms. Mofat. Dated 6/7/23, Doña County. This letter is our objection. Please do not pass the SUP for a marijuana business operation in a residential neighborhood. The application for the marijuana commercial business is a large grow and sale operation for a residential neighborhood. This type of drug operation needs to be in industrial or commercial zoning areas. Changing this residential home that appears to want to be a marijuana commercial business in a residential neighborhood may certainly destroy the neighborhood. Notification to the residential area needs to be far larger than the 200 feet or less area that was notified for this grow and sell drug operation. A simple question for the Doña County Development Department for marijuana business operations: what does this mean? Zoning, city and county red lines, business licensees, owners, grow and sales area, testing, chemicals, employees, traffic control of sale and distribution, sales and location, security, walls and privacy, order, criminal sales, and many more. So this was a letter submitted by Ms. Joy Mofat. Here's one of the signs that was posted on the property. This is right off of North Star Court, next to their driveway. And that's the area of notification that was sent out. When we look at the parcel, so here I'm just standing west of the property on North Star Court. That's the existing residence that's there. This is the northern, I guess, portion or property line over here. So where this RV is at right now, it's basically going to be their grow area number 1 that we saw. And that's just another close-up. This wall right here, you know, I don't have a tape measure with me, but it's probably about 8 feet tall. You know, I was able to raise my hand, and it was way taller than that. Kind of looks like it might just be like a retaining wall for, you know, for the next property. But it's a pretty high wall. If I'm standing over here on Desert Wind, this is basically the area where grow area number 2 is going to be located. So right here, I'm just looking onto their southeastern corner of their property right here. And then just looking back onto the property from Desert Wind on their southeastern corner. I'm standing across Desert Wind right here, looking onto North Star. Like I said, it's about a 50-foot right-of-way right here. This is the access to that 8 lots that are back here. And then, you know, just driving down the street, you know, I could just observe that it was basically a residential neighborhood down there. And then here I'm on North Star in front of the subject parcel, just looking back onto Desert Wind. And then this is Desert Wind, and that's La Reina down here. And then just another view of Desert Wind looking east. So for applicable plans, policies, and criteria for SUPs, we got to look at section 350-204, 350-502, which deals with cannabis establishments. We got to look at 204 as well for the notice procedures and decisional criteria. So under 502 right now, you know, it talks about, you know, how far a cannabis establishment needs to be from schools or daycares. It talks about, you know, the mechanisms and techniques that they have to use in order to mitigate or minimize odors. And then it also deals with the zoning administrator, P&Z, or the Board of County Commissioners being able to apply conditions to a special use permit in order to protect the public health, safety, and welfare. We have some definitions for cannabis cultivation and cannabis microbusiness. And then, of course, under the microbusiness, they're limited to the 200 plants. When it comes to the decisional criteria, we got to look at the following items. For traffic flows and impacts, traffic impacts are going to be minimal. The business is going to be solely maintained and worked by the owners and family. Employees are not expected to be hired, as this is a small-scale, family-managed work endeavor. The need for a new commercial or residential activity, you know, like I stated in other cases, we had New Mexico House Bill 2 being signed into law on April 12, about 2 years ago. And then, of course, the county code as well. We adopted our own ordinance for cannabis establishments. Retail sales started on April 1st of 2022. The property not being assessed as ag right now is requiring approval of an SUP for a cannabis microbusiness. So the primary goal of this business is to provide the product to retailers that focus on supplying medical cannabis users in New Mexico. Moongate Water is going to be the water provider. The applicant states that water needs will increase but will not be excessive, as plant count for this business will be less than 200. Water saving recycling measures will be in use, and sewer needs will not be increasing. So we don't believe that there's going to be any major impacts to the existing infrastructure right now. There has been no evidence submitted that there are endangered or rare species of animal and plant life in the area. The applicant stated that they're not going to have any signs out there. So there's going to be no indication of a business being located on the property. Business activities will not be able to be observed from surrounding properties. The property will have to meet all security measures as required by the Cannabis Control Division, including security alarm systems, digital video surveillance, commercial grade locks, limited access areas, lighting, and fencing requirements for outdoor areas. And then, of course, applicant will implement best management practices. A certified contractor will follow best practices to construct the required fencing, landscaping buffer, et cetera. All rules and regs as stipulated by the Cannabis Control Division will be followed, and best practices for efficient water and energy will also be followed. So we do believe that the request today does meet the decision criteria for SUPs. The next 3 slides, basically what I did, I had building services and GIS work together to create this map. When you go to the Cannabis Control Division website, you're gonna find hundreds of applications that are in there. But what I wanted to do was, let's get together the building services and look at what has the county approved. What have people actually submitted? I think by going that route, we get a better count of what is actually out there. So we looked into building permits for anything related to cannabis establishments. We looked at fencing permits, which would kind of give us an indication of, what kind of growers are out there, whether they're micro business or large-scale producers. We looked at remodels, which would give us an idea of how many retailers are actually out there. And then, of course, for cannabis industry as well. When we look at the counts, right now, we pretty much had about 40 building permits. For dispensaries, we had 12. For micro business producers, we had 7. Producers, 18. And for cannabis industry, we had about 3 of them. Let me just zoom in a little bit here. The gray area here, it's basically city limits. So these are just for everything that's outside of city limits out in the county. The closest one to the subject parcel or for today's request is going to be the one that we did on Navajo Trail. I think that was one of our first SUP cases for a micro business, and that was for Mr. and Mrs. Tafoya. Those are the ones that we ended up approving. We gave them a year, like a trial period, where they were able to grow 50 plants, and then after a year, we're going to go back and do inspections and then get them up to 100 plants. But when we look at the northern part of the county, we have producers out there. We have the one on BB Romick that we just did not too long ago for industry/producer. Lot of greenhouses out there. Dispensary, this is the one that we just did in the village of Doña Ana. And then, of course, when we look to the southern portion of the county, we have quite a few here in the Chaparral area, and then just all along, Highway 28. There's a couple more. So total, about 40 establishments that we were able to count. Once again, that's our site plans. For the findings.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair. Albert, of those cases of these permits, do you have any breakdown of what percentage of these are in residential areas and which ones are not?
I don't have that breakdown, but just off the top of my head, a lot of the ones that have come before this board, those are the ones that got the public hearing triggered because of neighborhood opposition.
Specifically, and of course, I don't expect you to have this, but in D1.
I think for the most part, just a quick estimate, about 80% of the ones that were done in D1, they probably had to go to public hearing. So the majority of them because of neighborhood opposition.
Thank you.
But that's just an estimate. So, but of course, I can get you that info later on. For our findings, which are included on your packet, we do believe that this SUP was consistent with the health, safety, and general welfare of the residents of the county per the intent of the UDC. Per the land use classification matrix, it isn't a D1, it's not zoned as ag. It does require a special use permit. So under item number 7, The Cannabis Regulation Act includes a social and economic equity mandate. It encourages adoption of procedures to promote and encourage full participation in the cannabis industry of representatives of communities that have disproportionately been harmed by rates of arrest through the enforcement of cannabis prohibitions, and encourage racial, ethnic, gender, geographic diversity, and New Mexico residency among licensed applicants, licensees, and cannabis industry employees. Policies must also encourage representatives from rural communities that are likely to be impacted by cannabis production, including ag producers from economically disadvantaged communities. Under item number 8, the Planning and Zoning Commission can apply conditions to a special use permit in order to protect the public health, safety, and welfare. Based on the findings of fact, our analysis and agency comments, we are recommending conditional approval of case SU 23012 to operate a cannabis microbusiness establishment with the following conditions. That new construction proposed to be used for the cannabis establishment will be required to meet all applicable construction, fire, and life safety codes. Transportation and the shipping of cannabis products shall be by employees with a cannabis courier license, non-commercial vehicles, and shall be limited to the hours of 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., 7 days a week. A solid 6-foot security wall or fence surrounding the greenhouses per state statute must be installed. Razor wire or barbed wire is prohibited. A 12-foot landscaping buffer shall be located outside of the fenced area and shall consist with a minimum of 50% visual obstruction along the buffer length. No clients or retail sales are allowed on the property. Accessory buildings shall meet the 25-foot front setback and 5-foot rear and side setbacks. Approval of the SUP will only be for the microproduction and cultivation of up to 100 mature cannabis plants for a period of 1 year. So, you know, the applicant's original request was to go for a total of 200 plants, but for condition number 7, staff is recommending that for a period of 1 year that they're only able to cultivate 100 mature cannabis plants. After 1 year, a review of the operation will be conducted by county staff to ensure compliance of the conditions herein. If the conditions have been met, the applicant will be allowed to proceed with the microproduction and cultivation of up to 200 mature cannabis plants. If the conditions have not been met, the applicant will be limited to 100 mature cannabis plants. Those are the recommendations for staff, from staff for this SUP. That's the end of our presentation. We do have the applicant here as well, and staff stands for questions.
Questions? Lynn, did you have any questions?
Only one question for staff. Albert, is it, I see we have a 1-year period where we're going to analyze the operation and evaluate whether or not they could increase their production. Is that 1 year established by some sort of precedent or law, or can that be reduced in terms of timing? And furthermore, does it include sort of impact to the community, I guess, based on the wide variety of impact, or at least complaints that I've seen so far? I would be curious of whether or not we can have some sort of control with the establishment. Are they meeting the standards for community impact as you have set out? So that would be my question to pose to you.
Yes, Commissioner Lynn, 1 year, it's what we've used in the past. Of course, you know, that's up to the Planning and Zoning Commission to see if this commission wants to modify that trial period. But that's just, you know, something that we've used on another case. So we just went with the 1 year trial period. Of course, if the commission wishes to extend that or reduce that, then, you know, that's totally up to this commission. If let's just say that the SUP does get approved, you know, they build it out and we start getting complaints about, you know, any kind of issue in regards to the operation, then we would just follow standard procedure and we'll be sending out code enforcement officers to go out there and check it out and see what's going on. If it's something related to the structure itself or to the greenhouses, then we would have to send one of our building inspectors to go out there as well and check it. And then depending on the outcome of that, then we would just follow up with it.
And then to answer that further, if there is, let's say, continued or maybe increased community dissension for the impact on the community, is there any recourse beyond that point?
If the applicant fails to meet the conditions, then staff is able to pull, the SUP.
Okay, that's what I was looking for. Thank you very much.
Anybody else? Let's hear from the applicant. Morning. They're going to swear you in.
Good morning. Please state your name and address for the record.
Michael Page, 366 Bar Rockland. Felipe Contreras, 5750 North Star Court.
Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth under penalty of law?
Yes.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning, guys. So we wanted to get into the marijuana industry basically because to help a lot of my patients. I am a nurse. I have a lot of cancer patients. I do home health. And me and Felipe have been best friends for over 20 years. When we saw the opportunity, when the licenses started coming out, I said, hey, we could help people and make a little income on the side also. We didn't want to do anything big, just help make quality product for patients. So we got together, everything worked out, and we applied for the permit.
This is one of your residents?
It's his.
It's yours?
This is my property. We will just be 50-50 business partners. Any concerns?
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Also, just to let you know, it's going to be a hoop house, grow house, and we are going to control the smells, carbon filters, comply with everything.
Okay.
Shouldn't be any issue.
Can I ask you, I do have one question regarding that. This is, I don't want to say it's irrelevant, but I just really want to know. Why are the hoop houses, we seem to see more hoop houses with this operation. What is the
Cost.
reasoning behind that?
It's
Cost.
cost. It's not a permanent structure. It can be moved around, so it doesn't require a permit.
Okay.
And cost. It just, to get that square footage, it's cheap. It's cheaper.
Is there any effect on I had a feeling it might have something to do with the effect on the quality of the plant or water use or anything like that. So
No,
it's
just so
strictly
you can
cost.
control the smell, basically. So you can capture that and filter the air.
Okay, thank you. I just always want to know. Thank you for letting me
Okay.
know.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Eileen, do you have anyone that wants to speak?
The first is Claudia Orianta.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Please state your name and address for the record.
Claudia Orantia, 5762 North Star Court, Las Cruces, New Mexico.
Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth under penalty of law?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. So I am completely opposed to this. Mr. Casillas talks about Highway 28. We know Highway 28, anybody that's from the area, that's not a residential area, right? Most of those places are farm places. I'm not opposed to these two gentlemen growing whatever it is they want to grow. They need to buy the land for it, though. Don't come into our neighborhood and destroy it. You have the people here down the area in the Gray Fox area that are up in arms, right? They have a little bit more money to fight. Here, we're lower income, so now you want to go put that in our backyards. As a cancer survivor myself and somebody who has experience with what Mr. Page brought up, I know the benefits of what marijuana could bring, but I also know the type of people that it attracts, right? So my thing is, don't bring that to our neighborhood. Don't approve that in a residential area. If he wants to buy for some farmland and grow in a farmland, go for it, but don't bring that to my home. Let me see. We don't want undesirable people in our neighborhood trying to get hands on a piece of the pie. I understand they're not going to have signs, but we've already noticed an increase in traffic in their home in particularly. he did get a lot of letters from the neighborhoods. Mr. Casillas didn't show that there are more homes in that area. It's not just that street. They're all around, and everybody's opposed to it. And he probably got more letters than, from not just the people on the street, but from other homes around there. So that is all I have to say.
Juan Orianta. Albert.
Señor Orrantia,
Buenos días.
acá de este lado.
Oh, buenos días.
¿Puede alzar su mano derecha?
Sí, señor.
¿Cuál es su nombre y su dirección?
Es Juan Orrantia Jiménez,
Okay.
5762, North Star.
Y el día de hoy está dispuesto a decir la verdad y nada más que la verdad, el día de hoy bajo juramento.
Sí, señor.
Gracias.
Buenos días, señores. Voy a hablar en español.
Señor Orrantia, voy a tratar de traducirle poquito, o nomás más de tiempo para alcanzarlo.
Sí, señor.
Good morning, commissioners.
Yo soy vecino del señor Contreras.
I'm a neighbor of Mr. Contreras.
Me estoy oponiendo a que ponga ese negocio
And I'm opposed to him putting this business
porque lo está poniendo como a 30 pies de mi propiedad.
because he's putting it about 30 feet away from my property.
Así es que todos los químicos, los olores,
And then all the chemicals and all the odors,
la gente que llegue
people that show up,
va a desquiciar la comunidad,
it's going to destroy the neighborhood.
especialmente me afecta a mí.
Especially, it's going to affect him.
Somos 4 vecinos
We are 4 neighbors
del lado de él,
from his side,
2 del lado sur.
2 on the south side.
No pudieron venir porque un señor está enfermo,
They couldn't
otro
come
señor
because-
está en Phoenix predicando.
They couldn't come because one of the neighbors is sick and the other one's at the church.
Y aquí estoy yo, representando a todos los vecinos.
And I'm here today representing all the neighbors.
Y todos estamos oponiéndonos al negocio que quiere poner el señor Contreras.
And we are all opposed to the business that Mr. Contreras wants to set up.
No sé qué decisión tomen ustedes, ustedes son la autoridad,
I don't know what decision you guys are going to take. You guys are the authority,
pero espero lo mejor.
but I hope for the best.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you.
Buen día.
Good day.
Norma Orianta. Good morning. Please state your name and address and raise your right hand.
My name is Norma Orrantia. My address is 5762 North Star, Las Cruces, New Mexico.
Norma, pull that microphone down to you. Thank you.
Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give today is the truth under penalty of law?
I do.
Thank you.
I have a few questions for the commissioner. I wanted to ask him, how are you going to make sure that what you are saying, you have all these things for a year, how will you make sure that they go about doing it? How will you make sure that there is no order in the air? I think that we're all aware of how many cannabis businesses are going up in the city. You can't drive a mile without seeing 6 or 7 of them. And if you go into any of the neighboring businesses, Mateo's, a dance studio, anywhere that is next to a to a cannabis, the order is there. They all have, you went to restaurants, you can't eat at those restaurants because they smell like cannabis. So now he's coming to a resident area where we've been there since 1986 and is proposing to become a cannabis. So how is the Doña County going to make sure that all of the laws that you've put in or the ordinance that you've put in for the year, how is he going to meet that? How is he going to prevent the odors and the chemicals from going into our parents' yard and into the neighbors' yards? This is a residential area of predominantly lower income people who unfortunately either can't take the day off to come and fight for their land that they've been there for 30-plus years. So how is he going to prevent all of that? How is he going to prevent the already high traffic? And as somebody who comes to that area at 5 in the morning, there are cars there at 5 in the morning. I've seen several cars leaving the area at 5 o'clock in the morning on a weekly basis. So how is it going to be prevented with the traffic? How are the orders going to be prevented? And that's what we would like to know. That's all. Thank you.
Wait. I have to ask you a question. So are you saying that the applicant is causing the traffic, or are you just saying there's more traffic in the neighborhood?
The traffic is at his property.
Okay.
And I've seen it myself. I am there at 5 o'clock in the morning. I leave the area at about 4:55, 5 o'clock in the morning, every day from Saturday through Thursday. And there will be multiple cars there on
So-
any special occasion, on any day.
So to partially answer your question, the two mechanisms that the county has to address the issue of odors, one is to respond to complaints from neighbors. So if somebody in that neighborhood complains to the county, they will come out. And the other part of the answer is that after a year, they'll look at all the complaints, they'll look at all the issues, and they'll go out and inspect the property.
So
and see.
I apologize, but, so now you have all these complaints before the business goes up. You have all these neighbors that have written in, emailed to ask the county to please not let this go through. But instead of being preventative, now we're gonna go ahead and allow it and then maybe be reactive when there are complaints?
Well, here's the problem. We don't know what will happen. It may not. So we can't make a decision based on that. That's the problem. Those are called anticipatory nuisances. So we have to wait and see what happens. Maybe they will be good neighbors. Maybe there won't be any odors. We don't know. And that's why you have to wait to see if there's a complaint, to look at the record after a year, and have the county come out and inspect the property to see if they're doing what they said they were going to do.
So
And
we
that's,
can't,
and that's if it's approved. I don't know how the other commissioners are going to vote.
you can't use what is already, like I can't remember, I think the Silver Fox neighborhood, where they have been complaining and complaining and complaining about orders and stuff, and yet they're a wealthier neighborhood, and we can't take what is already happening in that neighborhood as an example of what is happening when these businesses are moving into residential areas. When,
The problem is it's a different property owner.
but
That's the
it's still
problem.
the same business. So
Well,
it's the same, it's a property owner, but it's still the same business. It's still growing the same marijuana. And I think we can all agree that no matter how you disguise it, you will always have an order.
We can't say that.
But you can say that because you can go into any business that's next to a marijuana place and smell it.
There's different kinds of businesses. There's different sizes of businesses. There's different kinds of plants. So all those have to be taken into consideration. We can't say definitively that that will happen. Not sitting here today, we can't say that. That's the reality of the situation. It may happen, it may not.
Wordplay. But
Okay.
you're right. Thank you.
Anybody else, Eileen?
No, sir.
I'm going to let the applicant come up and respond.
So, on any concerns about pesticides, we're not gonna be using anything, we're gonna be organic. The hoop house, there shouldn't be any odors, as you know, that can capture it all. She was talking about sitting outside of Matteo's and smelling it. We're not gonna be consuming any of it, we don't smoke it.
And as far as fertilizers go, we'll be using your basic fertilizers that are used in our normal ag around around Las Cruces and New Mexico and the county and stuff. So we'll be using any of that regular stuff. I do respect my neighbors' concerns and stuff like that, but I think we can alleviate a lot of that by putting in a lot of these, like the carbon filters and stuff for the odor and stuff. And as far as the traffic goes, I don't know why they're seeing an increase in traffic, because it's still just me, my son, and my wife living there. And that's about it on the traffic thing. And like I said, we're not gonna be bringing in any extra employees or anything. We're gonna just do this family. And my business partner here, and so we shouldn't see any increase in traffic.
Okay.
As far as due to our business.
Any other questions?
Yes, Mr. Chair, is your company going to be doing the delivering from your site, or will it be, how are you transporting?
According to the regulations, we are allowed to deliver from our establishment to a dispensary.
So is that going to be the sole method, is you delivering?
Yes.
I mean, there, in any of these cases, there are concerns of some of these on-site establishments showing up to your property to pick up and deliver, which, I mean, if you're going to be the only one delivering, we just wanted to see if that was clear. Thank you.
There'll be no outside people coming in.
And there'll be no set times or anything probably, so it's.
And, you know, 100 plants is small. We still have to pay follow the same rules as if they're growing 16,000 plants. We still have to get the same security. We still have to pay for the tracking system. The costs are still there, just with a smaller amount of plants.
Mr. Chair? I'd like to ask the applicants a question if I can.
Go ahead.
Can you gentlemen please respond to the assertion by the neighbor about traffic coming there at 5 o'clock in the morning and something like maybe significant traffic or maybe out of the ordinary type traffic? Is that accurate, or can you respond to that, please?
I don't believe it's accurate because like I said, it's just us. We work Monday through Friday. My wife, she cleans houses and stuff. She doesn't have any set hours, and it's just my son. He's 24. And, you know, so it's just us. I mean, yeah, on the weekends maybe we'll have get-togethers or whatever once in a while, but they don't usually go till 4 or 5 in the morning or anything like that. So I'm not really sure what the traffic is right now that they are talking about.
And you don't anticipate anything like that when the business is started?
No, sir. Probably the only traffic that we would see initially would be, if we get approved, would just be for like the construction of the fence or anything like that, just people working, you know, to get that put up and stuff. But other than that, I don't foresee any of that occurring. I mean, we plan on working, you know, normal business. Well, we still work. So after work, we would be doing these things after work and on weekends, you know. But
Okay.
as far as the increase in traffic, I don't foresee that happening.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mhm.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anything else?
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
just
Steve.
one question for staff, and I think Sean would be able to answer this. Sean, have we had, can you tell me how many complaints we've had regarding odor in any of these growing and cultivation establishments that we've approved over the year?
Please raise your right hand, state your name and address for the record.
Sean Vick, 845 North Motel Boulevard.
Do you
Is
affirm
that-
that,
I'm sorry, is that on?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
do you affirm the testimony, excuse me. Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give today is the truth under penalty of law?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Chair, complaints on odor is, we really don't get too many unless it comes through codes. Of course, we have the property on Silver Creek, which everyone's aware of. They've voiced concerns on odor here, but not to our department. The cannabis odor is no different than when hemp was legal. You know, when hemp, they grew hemp throughout the farmland. It didn't have to be fenced or screened, still has the same odor. When it comes to the indoor grows, where it gets really tricky is, and I've looked at stuff in Washington, Colorado, Oregon, and how a lot of people look at it is what may be offensive to you, Commissioner, or anyone else in the audience may not be offensive to someone else. So how do you really distinguish what's offensive or an offensive odor to someone in that aspect? It's really a personal preference or their personal idea of what's offensive, if that really answers your question.
The reason, I mean, we do have, we have requirements for filtration, and we have requirements for, you know, to mitigate any odors. And I'm not sure how many consumption lounges that we do have in the unincorporated parts of the county, but I would just assume that if we're going to have any complaints on odor, it's going to come from consumption lounges or consumption areas and not from growing cultivation. But that's why I wanted to ask you that.
Yeah, it could. I mean, you're really not gonna get a real strong odor from the cannabis until it starts to flower and mature and you cut it. And that's when you get the terpenes and everything else that are going into the flower that really creates that pungent smell.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
And Mr. Chair, in regards to the comment regarding Mateo's, I'm going to assume that that's the downtown location. And so if there were an odor coming from there, that would be coming from the pharmacy across the street, unless there's another establishment that I'm unaware of. And I do not believe that those are consumption areas either. But nevertheless, that is still, I mean, we wouldn't have any real feedback or data on that location because it is in the city.
Right.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
this is probably more of a comment or a question to the commission. We use the phrase when we're talking about a special use permit, in order to protect the public health, safety, and welfare. So I guess my question is when we have substantial opposition, how do we reconcile the fact that the intent is to protect public health, safety, and welfare when we're hearing from the public that they don't believe that taking this action would do that?
I think part of it is the decisional criteria, that we're limited to that set of rules that are in the code. If an applicant meets those criteria, then we're not bound, because it depends on the level of opposition and whether the opposition is factual or emotional. A lot of times it's emotional.
True.
So we have to be careful about that. And we also have to weigh the rights of the property owner against the opposition that's stated and the decisional criteria. I mean, it's all those things taken together. I would guess that if we always ruled as a result of neighborhood opposition, 70 to 80% of the applications would be denied.
True.
So it's one other factor that has to be considered. All right, so do we have anything else? All right, I'll consider a motion on this, and just so the audience understands, a motion doesn't mean that the commissioner approves it. It's just a procedure that we have to have in order to hold a vote. So I need a motion on this case.
So, Mr. Chair, I'll go ahead and make a motion so we can move forward with this. I do, as you mentioned, I'm not in agreement with this particular business in this neighborhood, but we'll go ahead and move forward.
That's fine.
So, make a motion to approve case number SU 23-012.
Okay, so can I get, Arnie, let me recommend a suggestion or a recommendation to your motion. One, that we recommend approval with, with the conditions stated by staff. So there's eight conditions, I think, or seven conditions. And I'd like to change the second condition to transportation and shipping of cannabis products shall be by not by employees, because there aren't any employees. So it would be by family members with the cannabis courier license, non-commercial vehicles, and shall be limited to the hours of 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., Monday through Friday.
So, Mr. Chair, would that be just an amendment to
Yes,
Commissioner's motion?
yes. So he recommended approval based on the staff's findings. I'm adding the conditions and then changing condition number 2.
I just want to make sure that we're doing this correctly with your, so what you're stating is an amendment. If one of us were to second, then we're seconding the motion with your
Correct,
recommendation.
correct.
I second, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Eileen, you have all that?
Yes.
Okay. So is there any further discussion? Being none, Eileen, will you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Montañez,
Yes.
Commissioner Underwood,
Yes.
Commissioner Lear,
Reluctantly, yes.
Commissioner Castañeda,
No.
Chair Zerniak.
Yes. Carries 4-1. Thank you very much. Charlene, do you have the next case? Albert
Miss-
does? Okay.
Mr. Chair, if possible, I'd like to request from staff that if we can get some kind of, if we can get a number of cases that, or of SUPs that are in D1, and
Okay.
it doesn't have to be today,
Okay.
if we can, just to use for reference for any other cases that are in D1. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes, I'll have that, try and get that info for you guys as well. I'll be forwarding the map that I just showed for the case. And then I think right now we'll just make it a policy to just keep on updating that map as administrative SUPs or the ones for public hearings get approved, and we'll keep tabs on that. Like I said, when you go on the Cannabis Control Division website, there's many of them that, that there's many applications that have been processed, that they've been approved through the state, but they just haven't followed up with the county. So that's something that we keep tabs on as well.
They are all over the place. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So the next case is SD 22-040.
Good morning. Please state your name and address for the record.
Albert Casillas, 845 North Motel Boulevard.
Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth under penalty of law?
I do.
Thank you.
For our second case today, it is a subdivision request. The applicant is Pillar Engineering, which is here present. We also have the owner being Las Cruces Community Farms, LLP. This is located in Merino, New Mexico. The zoning is T3. The property size is about 6.08 acres. And what's being requested is it's a subdivision for 32 lots on this parcel. The lot sizes are going to range from 0.138 to 0.175. And this is going to be known as the Las Flores Subdivision Phase 2. The applicant's also requesting a modification to public lighting and to the 10-year, 24-hour storm event collected flow spread, allowing for a 10-foot lane clear of runoff. Staff is here. We do also have Michael Garza, who's with the Flood Department, to answer any questions later on in regards to those modifications that are being requested. The location map this property is going to look familiar because we just saw, we heard a case for a zone change for cannabis industry. The parcel itself, hasn't been cut out yet, but it is 6 acres on the western side. I mean on the eastern side of this, of this parcel right here. Currently, this is phase 1 of Las Flores, which was approved or finalized in 2021. And then they're just continuing on with phase 2, which is going to be the final phase of Las Flores. This is just a cover sheet for Las Flores subdivision. And on here, on the plat itself, we basically see what's here on phase 1. And this is going to be what's being proposed here for phase 2, the 32 lots. All of these roads right here are already built out. They're already paved, and they're actually just slowly applying for building permits for phase 1. When we look at the policies and criteria for approval, these are the applicable sections of the EDC that apply to subdivisions. A little bit of background, it is located north of the Berino town site. 2020, in November of that year, the Board of County Commissioners, they approved the final plat for phase 1. And that was about 65 lots on 16 acres. During the hearing, a motion was made directing management to work with the applicant and surrounding property owners to address connection to Stern Drive in support of current and future development in the area. So this was, during the preliminary plat approval for phase 1. So an agreement was never reached by the applicant and by surrounding property owners. So basically, that owner that's running Stern Drive. So when the final plat went before the board, there was only a recommendation to include a third point of entry into Las Flores subdivision, and that was going to be via Rista Street. Let me go back to the plat a little bit, and then I'll show you on the aerials. So basically there was just they were only showing 2 access points onto phase 1 of Las Flores subdivision. What the BOCC basically told the applicant was, hey, talk to the property owner over here on the east side and see if we can get that that extra connection all the way to Stern. Like I said, an agreement was never reached. I believe it was Mr. Miguel Guillen. Mr. Guillen is the current property owner of all those properties that are fronting the Stern Drive over here. So that agreement was never reached. So they came back and added a third entry point onto Las Flores subdivision. And that was over here through a Restore Drive. Also, Las Flores subdivision is part of this master plan that was known as the Las Cruces Community Farms LLP. Which includes, the baked chicken farm, which is, what we heard on one of our previous meetings, which is, the former McAnally egg farm. This master plan proposed a 3-phased mixed use of 65 residential lots for phase 1, 32 lots for phase 2, which is why we're here today. And then for phase 3, they were showing that collector roadway for phase 3. And then, of course, the rest of the farm was going to be that ag and cannabis nurseries. In addition, on November of 2018, the PNZ did grant a variance for grading and drainage to phase 1. So, that modification that's being requested today, basically for phase 1, they requested the same thing. But back then, they were able to get approval of it through a variance request. So we've done away with variances to subdivision standards now, and that's why they're coming in as a modification request via the subdivision application itself. But phase one did get that same modification for grading and drainage. Like I said before, it is a type 2 subdivision for 32 lots. All utilities will be underground, including electricity. Just a clarification here, water and wastewater are provided by Doña County. Lower Rio Grande is basically, you know, they're the ones that build the property, so they're the ones that take care of all the building for us. But it's still Doña County, the one who's the water and the sewer provider. So I just wanted to make that clarification. Access to the subdivision will be from Otero, Vargas, and Brista Street. All the streets are paved and county maintained, as well as the internal roads that are being depicted on the plat. The roads within the subdivision will consist of 34 feet from face of curb to face of curb with asphalt pavement over a compacted base course, and there's going to be subgrade as well. Concrete curb and gutters and a 4-foot sidewalk on each side of the roadway. The total dedicated roadway for those internal roads will be 52 feet. No recreational facilities are being proposed for the subdivision. So here's just the aerial of the property right here. Of course, you already see that phase one has been platted out. You know, they're already building houses out there. This is the town site of Berino right here to the south, and then we have the cannabis operation here on the property. When I was talking earlier about the preliminary plat for phase one and kind of like the guidance from the BOCC for the applicant and for him to work with the surrounding property owners, this is what they were talking about, basically just extending the road all the way to Stern to serve as as another entry point or another point of access to the subdivision. Like I said before, when they were going through the preliminary plat, that agreement was never reached. So the recommendation was just to include a third point of entry, and that's through here, through this road that's called the Amarilis Road right here. This is just a copy of that master plan that was approved. It's basically showing this area that's here enclosed by the dark line. That's basically the master plan itself. We have phase one here and phase two, and then of course the ag processing. And then on here on the master plan, of course, you see the basic layout for Las Flores subdivision, and then the nurseries and the production for cannabis here as part of phase three. When we look at the surrounding zoning, I mean, of course, this is T2 now. I wasn't able to update the zoning map in time. That's phase two right here. And then that's just a notification map that we did for the subdivision. About 100 letters were sent out as part of the notification. Legal ads were posted on the property, and signs were placed on the property in a timely manner. That's just an extra slide. But in reality, there was no emails or letters, in favor and opposition to this case. This picture right here, I'm standing on Stern Drive. There's a couple of billboards. I'm just, standing right under a billboard. So I'm looking, from this point, I'm looking southwest onto the property right here. You can kind of see already the houses that are built for phase one of Las Flores, and then that's going to be basically the side of that Las Flores extension. And then on here, I'm towards the northern portion of the property, and basically this is going to be Las Flores subdivision phase two right here. I'm standing on the south property line of the 6 acres, and now I'm looking north onto those 6 acres. This is just some pictures of how Las Flores Phase 1 currently looks like. I'm here on Amarlis and Arcadia. Basically, you know, all the infrastructure is already in place, and right now they're just in the process of submitting for building permits. Another view of Orquídea and Amaryllis. I'm looking west on Amaryllis, kind of just, you know, looking towards the baked chicken facility. This is one of the internal roads, and I'm looking south on Vargas Street. Looking west on Azucena. And then that's just one of the existing ponding areas that's there for Phase 1. And then just the surrounding areas, you know, that first picture that I took, I was standing kind of like towards where this billboard's at over here on Stern Drive. You know, that's one of the properties that's owned by Mr. Guillen. If you're driving south on I-10, that's basically where he has a mechanic shop for cars, and then just he uses those buildings for storage. The proposed subdivision has gone through agency reviews. There are minor outstanding comments right now. No negative opinions for the preliminary plat. All the lots meet the zoning requirements for T3. All the notice requirements have been met. Data requirements were reviewed by the appropriate agencies, and remaining outstanding comments from the reviewing agencies will be addressed prior to the submittal of a final plat. Infrastructure improvements such as drainage, ponding, and roadways will be inspected to ensure compliance with county standards. And once again, water and wastewater is provided by Doña County, not the Lower Rio Grande. And the preliminary plat application is consistent with the standards of Chapter 350. So based on the following findings, staff does recommend conditional approval for the Las Flores subdivision Phase 2, the preliminary plat, the modification request, and also providing the remaining minor comments are addressed prior to final plat approval. Our findings, they're included in your packet, but we're basically stating that they've met all the subdivision and data requirements under Section 350-407. On the third comment right here, the DRC did review the request for today, and that they looked at it last week. They did recommend approval for the subdivision itself, for the construction drawings and the modification request to public lighting, and to the request to that requirement there for drainage. Under public lighting, public lighting was not a requirement at the time that they submitted for Phase 1, or even at the time that they submitted for Parque Homes, which is that other subdivision that's on the eastern side of the town side of Berino. Because of that, you know, the applicant himself, they're also requesting that modification, that public lighting not to be included as part of the subdivision, since Las Flores Phase 1 does not have it, and since Parque Homes does not have it as well.
Albert, can you explain the request to the modification for the 24-hour storm event? What are they actually asking for?
I would probably have a hard time explaining that as well, but that's why Michael's here, so I'll let him address that issue right now.
Okay, I'll wait till you.
As well as the applicant. So those were the two modifications that were being requested as part of the subdivision request, that no lighting, no public lighting be required, and that modification to drainage. So we're basically stating that the application is consistent with all those requirements of the EDC, as well as the Article 4 subdivision requirements. So that's the end of our presentation. If there's no questions for staff, I can have the applicant come up and also give a presentation.
I want to hear from the Flood Commission first.
Let's hear from Michael Garza first.
Good morning. Please state your name and address for the record.
Michael Garza, 845 North Mortel Boulevard.
Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give today is the truth under penalty of law?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
So, morning, Chair, Commissioners. I believe the question was just more explanation on what they're actually asking for. So in Chapter 350, 605 of the UDC, Table 618 refers to street carrying capacity. That refers to the ability for county roads to convey water from point A to point B. These lots in the subdivision are too small for ponding, so they have the large retention pond. So the county, or the individual lots are going to be sending their impervious area runoff to the roads. Roads will convey to the pond. There's two separate requirements for local roads in that table, one being for the 10-year event and the other being for the 100-year event. The applicant is asking for a waiver to the 10-year requirement, which is to allow a 10-foot wide clear driving lane on the road. Basically, there's a crown section in the roadway, and so if this modification wasn't being presented, they'd be required to carry the water on both sides of the road and allow for 10 feet of dry lane in the middle. To be completely honest with you, I don't know where that rule came from. It's kind of been one of those rules that's always been in the code. In phase one, Marty Pillar, the engineer of record, provided supporting documentation to kind of ask the question of why is this required, is it needed? It was always my understanding that the 10-year or the 10-foot dry lane was a emergency services kind of benefit, that they would be able to have a easier access or anything like that. I brought up that point in DRC last week. Fire confirmed that they don't have a preference one way or the other. And if I recall, although I don't remember the exact specifics, but in the phase two construction drawings, the actual dry width provided is like 8 feet or 7 feet. So there's a very marginal difference, negligible in terms of stormwater performance, in my opinion. And then the 100-year requirement that's in the UDC is that the water is kept within the curb and gutter, so there can't be more than 6 inches of flow on the roadway. They still intend to meet that requirement, and they've proved that in the phase two construction drawings and drainage report that they will meet that.
And where's the ponding area in the subdivision?
It's on the south side, right above Amarillo. That big square, I guess you can see. I guess I can point right here. This pond right here. And so it was constructed in phase one. The road slopes from north to south. So there's right here next to the pond is a dip in the roadway and a storm drain. So and an open rundown. So water will be on each side of the road. Part of it will go through the storm drain. The other will just go off the surface.
Okay. Anybody else have a question? Thank you. We can hear from the applicant. Yes. Okay.
Good morning. Please state your name and address for the record.
Marty Pillar, 751 Stern.
Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give today is the truth under penalty of law?
Yes.
Thank you.
Morning.
Morning.
First thing that I would like to correct up is the confusion with water and sewer. Water will be provided by Lower Rio Grande Water Service for the subdivision. They provided it for phase one. They'll provide it for phase two. Doña County will be providing sewer service for the subdivision, just like they did for phase one. Lower Rio Grande will do the billing services for sewer for Doña County. Just a little clarification on that. Want to make sure that we have that correct.
Thank you.
And, you know, everything that we've talked about on this subdivision, we're looking at doing the second phase of the subdivision. We have the same variance that Mr. Garza just talked about, or excuse me, waiver now. And the streetlights, this is a new request for phase two, because when we did phase one, streetlights were not required as part of the UDC regulations. So
Mr. Chair.
if you have any other questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
All right. I know they weren't required in the UDC, but are there any streetlights in that, in phase one?
No, there are not.
Thank you. So is that really your only reason for wanting to waive the streetlight recommendation, is because it wasn't required in phase one?
to have our, both phases of our development be consistent. Yes, sir, that's what we're looking at.
Thank you.
I think we're okay. Anything else?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. Eileen, do you have anybody that would like to speak?
No, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I do want to touch again on the on the streetlight requirement, and this does come up occasionally, and I want to just kind of revert back to the entire discussion that we had when we amended the UDC to require streetlights, and that was something that, you know, I'll say that I had my opinions on, and I wouldn't say that I was in full favor of that, but that at that point the discussion really was focused on lower density development. You know, the lots at the time were probably about 3/4 acre. In this case, I see a bit of a concern with, you know, with higher density residential development without any kind of streetlights. But I just want to go back to my question that we required streetlights in the UDC amendment, and we've seen cases before where this seems to either there seems to be exceptions made either through the DRC or now being proposed through this commission. How does this keep happening, or how is that? How does that stay consistent? And how does that? I mean, ultimately, how does that keep happening?
Well, I mean, the applicant's basically following the process that's outlined in the UDC right now for waivers. In this case, well, the rule right now basically says that if you're doing a subdivision and, you know, the lots are going to be less than half an acre, or the average lot size is going to be less than half an acre, then you do require sidewalks. And if a subdivision requires sidewalks, then lighting, public lighting is required. That's what's in the code right now. But I think that in this case specifically, because of the history, because of what's surrounding the property itself, what's surrounding what existing or recently approved subdivisions, you know, the way they've been developed without public lighting, I think our recommendation to the DRC was to recommend approval of those waivers, just to, you know, like Marty stated, just so that it's consistent with what has been approved before. That's not to say that the next one that comes in that they're also going to get that waiver. It might be a totally different scenario, and we might look at it differently.
So is the cannabis production facility, is that phase 3 of this, of the master plan?
It according to the master plan, yes. Okay. You know, that should have been phase 3.
Okay.
But the commissioner basically is just going to be on a case-by-case basis from now on.
It's a matter of consistency. But I think Steve's point is the concern is for public safety. And when you get these higher density developments, whether you should have lighting or not. I guess as we get new subdivision requests, and we should make sure that we at the DRC level, we shouldn't allow the modification even to be, they can ask, but DRC should be pretty rigid about it and say no from the point forward because of what the commission did. And the county commissioners approved, right. We're going to ask for public lighting.
Thank you.
So I'll take a motion on this.
Mr. Chair, based on staff's presentation, findings of fact, and testimony given today, I move for approval of case number SD 22-040 with the conditions recommended by staff.
I second that motion.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Eileen, call a roll, please.
Commissioner Underwood,
Yes.
Commissioner Montañez,
Yes.
Commissioner Lear,
Yes.
Commissioner Castañeda,
Yes.
Vice Chair Zerniak.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we're okay. Who's doing administrative approvals?
I'll go ahead and do
Okay.
morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. So for the month of May, we issued 19 new single-family residentials, and those are plotted in yellow on the overhead. And then there were 6 new commercial buildings, and those consisted mainly of commercial greenhouses, and then there was 1 warehouse down south. And then we also issued 21 new mobile home installation permits. 17 of those were on private land. And we brought in a total of almost $125,000 in permit fees. Any questions? All right, thank you.
Is that a lot of money?
It sounds like a lot. Is that a lot? Yeah, because we issued 101 total building permits. So I think it's a lot.
Just, so I know this is going to be an odd question, but does that money go into the general fund, or is it used to fund the department?
Mr. Chair, yes, it does go into the general fund.
So you have no control.
We don't, but, you know, when we prepare a budget, we do project the amount of revenue that the department will receive. And it does factor into some of the requests that we make for expenditures in our department.
Okay. It's a lot of money. All right. Staff input?
Chair, I'm probably just going to put Jenny on the spot right now, but the amendments did pass, the cannabis amendments. They did pass the Board of County Commissioners. From what I recall, and then just help me out, I think one of the main changes was to allow outdoor consumption. That was one of the changes that they did approve. The way it was in the code before was that you were only allowed to do a consumption lounge indoors in an approved retail location. Now they've expanded that into allowing it for outdoors. So we'll see how that goes.
Without any restrictions?
Yeah, I mean, there's restrictions. There's distance requirements to residential areas and how far you have to be from a right of way. There's buffer requirements and that kind of stuff.
But I remember Sean talking about all the restrictions on the indoor consumption areas and how rigid they were. And so they just kicked the door open and said, you can smoke outside? Wow.
That's one of the changes. Yeah, no, then they got rid of that whole ag assessment. So now, if you're only allowed to do it through a special use permit or through a permitted use, or apply for a special use permit in certain zoning designations. But basically the D1s and the T2s and T3s. So they took in those recommendations from the P&Z.
So what are the zoning requirements for outdoor consumption?
You still have to be in a retail location.
Okay. Thank you. I want to say I did stream that meeting from sitting in Denver at the time because that's what I focus my life on, even on vacation. But that was, thank you for clearing that up, because I had a really hard time with the language in the amendments, and wasn't sure exactly which zone requirement would be in outdoor consumption.
Yeah, one of the proposals from one of the commissioners was to eliminate distance requirements between retail establishments, but he did not have enough support for that. So those are still in place.
They should just call Telstra Cannabis Way.
But I just wanted to update you on those.
Okay, commission input? Christine, did you have anything?
Yes, I did want to mention that there's an item on the agenda for the BOCC on the 27th for the amendment to the CRUA JPA. And so it's 2 documents, and the second one is basically to give the planning authority back to the county. Now, I understand it still has to go for approval before the City of Sunland Parks Council as well as the CRUA board, but I understand that those discussions have taken place and there's support for it. If everything goes well and everything's approved, it still goes to the Department of Finance Authority for final approval. So it'll be several months still before it goes into effect. But at least it seems like there's finally some progress on it, and we may soon have that just ironed out so the county can use the UDC in that area.
Thank you. Anything else?
Does that completely dissolve the CRUA, or?
No, it does not dissolve CRUA. CRUA would still remain as a utility authority, and the composition of the board will change. It will be through appointment, and it will be focusing on people with various technical expertise that would be able to guide the utility authority.
I'm sorry. Thank you very much. And I guess the next question is, I mean, would CRUA still be reviewing cases and then sending them to us, or would those come directly to county?
So they would no longer have planning authority, and they would not be involved at all in any land use decisions. They would be strictly a utility company. And so any cases occurring in that area would then come to the county like any other case.
So you've been handling those cases with staff, but was that Luis that did that?
It used to be Luis, and now Albert has been handling cases, although there hasn't been a whole lot of activity recently, knock on wood.
Are you, would you prefer that there be another staff member for that end of the county?
I mean, obviously, we could always use the help, but we have been shorthanded for a little over a year now. And with the addition of another planner, I think that we would be well-equipped to handle the workload at this point.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Which is more I should know. I'll ask you later. That's okay. I'll ask you in a minute. Anything else? I think we can stand adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.